Howdy everyone, welcome to our Fireside Chat with Freight Leaders, hosted by Front. I'm Jacob Vasquez, I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Front. I'll be your moderator for the day. Super excited to be joined by two leaders, innovators, and experts in the space. We have Jay Gustafson, EVP of Brokerage Operations at Echo Global Logistics, and Will Kerr, CEO at Edge Logistics. Thank you all both for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Awesome. So the topic for today is how to make the most of a soft freight market and prepare for the industry rebound. As we know, 2020 and 21 were a strong year for the freight industry. We had spikes in demand because of the supply chain crisis, but starting last year and really feeling it this year, we've started to see a slowdown and a decline. So Jay, curious what Echo is doing to navigate this new soft market.
You know, we've at Echo dealt with multiple cycles in freight. Things go up, things go down, and it happens every few years. And so what I would say that we're really focused on right now is ensuring our success in the current cycle and putting ourselves in as strong of a position as we can for when the cycle does flip and freight's falling from the skies. And so I'd say there's a few things we're really focused on right now within the organization. Really instilling a culture of continuous improvement is a big thing for us. When the market was hot, it was tough to really look deep into internal processes, external processes that support our shippers and carriers, and we think it's really important that you're using this lull right now to really understand where you can drive a better operating procedure and better results for your partners. I would say another area we're really focused on right now is our technology investment. We were talking about it before the panel kicked off today, and if you start to invest in technology when the market's soft, by the time you implement anything, it's going to be tough to reap the benefits of it from our perspective. And so we're in this constant cycle of assessing, do we build new technology? Do we partner with third parties to move faster? And I would say we've used this time to double down on that continuous improvement in digital transformation. And then the third piece I would say is just continuing to stay relevant with the shippers and the carriers that you support. Trying to do everything you can through contract strategy or digital quoting with shippers to gain more share of wallet and give them a reason to give you more of their freight, not just set you up in a good position now, but when that market kind of swings back the other direction.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. We've had conversations with our customers both in logistics and across industries, and those themes of reevaluate your processes, invest in technology, and make sure you don't stop giving amazing customer service is a through line that we see for logistics and financial services, professional services across the board. Will, same question to you. How are y'all navigating the soft freight market?
Yeah, I mean, a soft freight market or a hot freight market, I think what we're really talking about is, revenue dynamics and, revenue per load. And, as freight brokers, we tend to make somewhere between, 10 and 18% on a transaction. And, when the revenue gets challenged and revenue per load goes from 2,000 a load to 1,000 a load or whatever, all of a sudden that margin opportunity really starts, to dry up. So I guess, the question is, what do you do about it, right? What's the answer? And, for us, there's a few different things that we really try to focus on whenever we get challenged. First of all the cases that we have going right now that are being successful are very relationship focused, where you have a long-term strategic vision of doing business with the customer or the carrier, right? And I think that having that, not just what you've done for me lately or like are you the first cheapest carrier, but having both a contracted and a spot relationship and vision for doing business with each other for a long time. So we really try to focus on customers like that. Also, in a soft freight market, when you're a company like Edge, where we're a top 100 freight brokerage firm, but we also are way smaller than the top 25 freight brokerage firms, right? So we can really focus on growth, right? So when things get challenged, everybody else is really trying to figure out how they're going to cut costs, how they're going to hit quarterly numbers, how they're going to hit annual margin goals, how they're going to pay debt service, all these things that we don't really have to do as a bootstrapped independent brokerage. And so what we do is we try to deploy capital into hiring and into getting real A+ players from well-established brokerages and to have them come over and help us grow. So right now, whenever the market's challenged, one of the good sides is that our competitors are challenged also. And a lot of those A players who have been enjoying $2,000 a load and making hundreds and thousands of dollars in commissions, they aren't anymore. And furthermore, the resources are being stretched. And they're losing operations, they're losing account management, they're losing carrier sales, and people get frustrated. And all of a sudden, we have an opportunity to really add really great talent, and that's what we've been really focused on, during this down cycle. And then, the third thing is, operational efficiency, right? Whenever revenue per load is really high, and whenever your loads are falling, everybody's got freight coming out of their ears, and your customers are just begging you to work on their freight versus your other customers' freight. It's easy to just hire, bodies in seats, plug it in, post the loads, take the call-ins, whatever it is, just get the trucks there now, right? And that quickly stops working, right? And whenever this sort of thing happens, and this happens a lot in this business, the market swings, and every single time, I bet Jay can speak to this too, but for us, they seem to get more extreme every single time. You just have to really be honest with yourself about what's working and what's not working, and you have to really, focus on, repeatable, predictable processes, and doing more with less. And if you can be honest about, we made decisions in the past based on the information that we had available in the market that we were in then, that those things have changed. So now we have to act accordingly. And I think the longer you hold on to things and the longer you try to run processes that aren't producing margin and aren't creating enough margin opportunity, the harder of a time you're going to have getting through a cycle.
Definitely. Y'all both touched on being nimble and making sure that you stay on top of your processes. So. Seeing a theme.
Yeah.
And then another theme I heard about service, relationships, trust. I think that a lot of folks in logistics probably hear a lot about that. What are you doing strategically, Will, to establish relationships, build trust, and deliver service, which is especially important in this type of market versus one of those where people are able to be less selective and they're
One thing I like about a soft market, as a carrier side guy for most of my career, is we can actually do a really good job. And all of a sudden, our numbers are awesome. All right, we can accept all the loads. Our rates hold up. We have great on-time delivery, and we can go into these quantitative business review meetings with customers, and we can talk about how it's actually working. Right? Versus, making excuses for why, tender acceptance is, why we can't accept our contracted freight and why we want to bid on everything on spot and why, even if we take a spot load, they only pick up, 80% of the time in a hot market or whatever. That's a much harder relationship to manage. Although you can make a lot more money in a short period of time. So for me, doing a good job and doing it the old-fashioned way where you have to actually go out there and source real capacity and deliver it on a single source or multi-source basis and keep your contracted freight out of the spot market and being carrier first and carrier focused is good for our product. It makes it harder to make money, that's for sure, but it makes it easier to do a good job moving the freight. So you kind of have to just make that work for you, and then long before the market bottoms out, you have to just be gobbling up contracted freight. Starting about, I don't know, February last year, we started to see the signs and the data of a big shift in the market where, we had this unhealthy imbalance between drop pricing and live pricing. And drop pricing is particularly provided by, heavy metal footprint asset-based national trucking companies. They're supported by really strong brokerage arms. So that strategy, for us to sell against drop is challenging, right? So we have to be able to really execute. So on the carrier side, we're focused on carrier relationships, bringing carriers freight that they actually want. Not just calling them and trying to book an empty truck today, but bringing value for them for this quarter, this season, this year, whatever it is. We'll give you that one lane from that customer that you want, where you don't have to make any of those long-term financial, technology, or compliance commitments, right? And then for customers, it's all about winning our carrier scorecard. It's Pretty simple. The customers have gotten really good at managing their carrier networks over the last 10 years. I think Jay can remember that back in the day where we would get an inventory report at the end of the month and they'd be like, did all these loads deliver? And you're like, you bet they did. And that was pretty much it, right? And those days are long gone. And the customers will tell you pretty much exactly what they want. They want, tender acceptance, 97% or higher, on-time delivery, 90%, 95% or higher, on-time pick, right in line with on-time delivery. They want you to actively participate in any pricing platforms they may have available, in any technology forms they may have available. And then, God forbid you win a load, you better communicate about it and you better pick it up and deliver on time, right? So, what do you have to win on? Active participation, communication, and performance, right? And if you can do all those things, and you're well organized and you're working with the right carriers, you should be able to perform really, really well in the soft market and set yourself up for really, really good trust and success when the volatility comes back.
That's a great point you make about customer service expectations. We see year over year, it's like they get higher and higher, this Amazon effect of,
That's correct.
I want it yesterday, and I want to be updated every 30 minutes.
Yeah, and every time we say it's going to be impossible, but then we somehow do it.
Exactly. What about you, Jay?
I'd just say, to add on to some of Will's comments, if you read some of the industry press or freight waves or inbound logistics 3-4 years ago, you would have every day consumed media that told you technology is going to take over freight brokerage, technology is going to remove all of the manual work that takes place at freight brokerages. We're moving to an app-based way of operating as an industry. And I think if anything's been apparent over the last 4 years is that technology in our industry matters. It's how we all do our jobs. It's how we connect with carriers and shippers. But what really matters to all of the stakeholders involved is the relationships. And I would say at Echo, we really see this balance of relationship and technology being the winning formula. One of our, sorry to drop it, slogans at Echo is technology at your fingertips, experts by your side. We really feel like that's the winning formula to support our partners. And to Will's comments, commentary, the expectations around service and reliability, I really think are as much, and fulfilling those objectives are as much of having a strong relationship as liking the person on the other side of the phone. This industry, you deal with lots of people, email, phone, Teams messages now, and while there's an element of having to enjoy doing business with the person on the other end of that communication, actual results are what matters. And I really think the results 3PLs like Echo and Edge deliver to our customers with the metrics they care about, being a good partner for our carriers when this market couldn't be tougher for them, is really what's going to help the 3PLs that are thoughtful in this area take a step beyond their competition. If you're chasing the cheapest truck on every load, you're not doing anything to build relationships with your client, your carriers, and you're jeopardizing service and reliability, for your shippers. And so I just really think that whole decision-making process around how you deliver reliable service is the winning formula for freight brokerages. Technology is a key part of growing. It's a huge part of doing more with less. But if you don't have the reputation, if you don't have the relationship, if you're not reliable 24 hours a day, the technology doesn't really matter from my perspective.
They need to know, like, and trust you.
Mm-hmm. Fair summary.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a little bit more tactical, y'all both talked about the really ambitious metrics that customers hold you to, 97% tender acceptance, on-time delivery. What do you do tactically to make that happen? So the systems and processes that you have in place to know that you're able to exceed those expectations.
Well, I'll quote our CEO, who often says, as a transportation company that's moving about 18,000 shipments a day, we're almost a data company. We have, if we have 18,000 pickups, that's 36,000 stops at a minimum, tons of transactional data that happens from that moment that order's created to settlement happens down the line. And the way we in this modern era are meeting these new expectations of shippers is, I would say, really understanding our transaction data, not just to play Monday morning quarterback and say this, that, and this happened last week to diagnose the results, but also use that data to drive different outcomes or a more proactive, customer service experience. I think about this real-time visibility, this trend that's been big in our industry for 6-7 years now, and the ability to get tracking data from your carrier partners every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. In my mind, the value in that is not getting 60 tracking updates a day. It's being able to have your system understand when that truck stopped moving and is maybe at risk of making delivery, and you send out some notification or you build out an alert within your TMS. That's how you can use that data to meet these customer service expectations. I'd say the other thing that is relevant today in this room and very relevant at Echo is we've got about 2,800 employees, 23 offices. Many of them are working virtually today, where we're not in office and dealing with each other in person. And while we've got transaction data to understand what each employee is doing on a daily basis, we've been able to get some really insightful insights from front to understand how individual employees, individual teams that use the front application are operating throughout the day. We're seeing parts of the day where email volume maybe sees a spike, and we didn't have enough staffing in place to support that inbound or outbound traffic, and we've been able to modify staffing plans, not just off of someone's gut feel saying, we've got 12 people between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., we need 18. We have data now we can look at to not just understand what's going on, but make changes within our organization to meet these growing service expectations. So I'd say it's a combination of looking at transactional data, driving action off of that, and then looking at some of this metadata we're now able to collect through an application like Front to really understand what roadblocks our teams are facing throughout the day.
It's great to hear that you're able to bring those two worlds together. You have that gold mine of transaction data, and then you're not using email or Outlook to where it's this black box and you don't have that visibility into what's happening with your brokers and with your teams. You can actually coach people, staff accordingly, and Front is a big fan of our partnership with Echo. What about you, Will? Tactically, how do you operationalize on these service and strategy goals?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything we do at Edge, from a talent and talent management, human capital perspective, from a technology and strategic partners, perspective, and from a brand vision perspective, moving forward is all about operationalizing our relationships and service strategy, right? So I think in order operationalizing relationships in terms of customer growth is all about communication and understanding where we can really bring value to the customer, and we do that both through sales and marketing and QBR and getting in front of customers and understanding their businesses and how they are similar or different to other cases we have, and how value we've created for other companies can be translated to this company, but also in terms of like active participation in the transactional market and in the RFP market, where we can really bring insight, like Jay said, where you can. We have the ability to aggregate data across, shippers, receivers, owned facilities, unowned facilities, all our customers, all our regions, all that kind of stuff, and that's able to we can say hey, this is working really well over here, but it would probably work better over here, and be able to swap out capacity and solutions to really help our customers find value in their network. And then for the carriers, it's all about just really understanding, what they need and which customers we have can really fit with them. And not just trying to find the first cheapest carrier, but trying to find the best long-term fit,
Yep.
Yeah. And then, from technology, there's a lot of different stuff. We have, we have a host of in-house proprietary, operational efficiency technology, both for booking loads, for, CRM, for, managing marketing, all that kind of stuff. And then we also have, Front and many other third-party technology vendors that, help us, fill gaps in the different, communication goals that we have with customers.
And technology has been a theme that has been talked about a lot today, so I want to dig deeper into that one. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you have a lot of tools, so maybe if you can share what you're currently using and relying on, or what's on the horizon and you're excited to adopt, just different freight tech that's on your radar.
Sure. I mean, we've had a lot of really great partners for a long time, like McLeod Software and Triumph Pay, and Lean Solutions for development in Colombia, and all that good stuff. But I think some of the new exciting ones that we're working on right now are Highway, the carrier identity management company, that's really shining a light on some of the major systemic issues that we have in the industry, not just for Edge, but for everybody. And I think the big thing holding us back from the next period of great enlightenment in freight is fraud, and not just fraud, but from a criminal perspective, like double brokering and that sort of stuff, but also just fraudulent participation, just committing to things that you're going to do as a business and then not doing them, whether that's from a rating perspective, from a capacity perspective, from a performance perspective. But there's a lot of, cloak and dagger, swap in and out type of stuff that goes on in this business. And until we're able to really, make capacity tradable, we are not going to be able to go any faster than we are right now, because we spend so much time and money and effort just trying to get carriers to where they say they're going to be when they say they're going to be there. Highway's done a really great job of helping with that, and really weeding out a lot of the bad capacity and the fraudulent capacity in the market. So that's a really cool one. And then another one that we're working on right now is with isometric technology. The guy there, actually some former Uber Freight guys started it, but it's basically like performance management and carrier network management software that really shows customers how 3PLs, asset haulers, blended services, intermodal services, whatever, how they really bring value, and it compares, transportation performance, apples to apples, and that's something that I think as brokers, when you get in the room with the shipper and they say that magic question, what makes you different from all the other brokers, now we have like a really, really good data-driven answer. It's like, it's not that we're that different, it's that we are much better, and that's evident here in the data. And here in the data are the different areas we see in your network where we can really bring value. And that is, a rapidly transforming part of the business right now, and something that we're really excited about.
Definitely. It's really powerful to have those numbers to show your ROI that you can deliver.
That's exactly right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Jay, what about at Echo? What's going on from a technology perspective? I know I saw something with the scheduling standards consortium that y'all are working on with JB Hunt and Uber Freight.
Yeah, so I guess on that first, I would say, we're early members in that scheduling standards consortium. When it got announced last November, my ears instantly perked up. One of my responsibilities at Echo is really focusing on not just how we drive automation, but how we improve just the user experience for our people, our carriers, and our shippers. And as I talk to people about time-consuming activities that they face day to day, scheduling appointments is almost always on the top 3 of the list from the Echo team. And so when we learned that this was going on, we thought it was an interesting way to get thought leaders across the brokerage, technology, shipper space together to try to solve this problem. And so I'm pretty optimistic in terms of what standardization in this area and connectivity between some of the big systems that are out there can do in this area. And so nothing live yet, but I'm pretty bullish on what this group is going to be able to develop. In terms of just the technology discussion in general, and some of Will's comments made me think about this. What I think has been really interesting in our industry, and it's something we've observed over the last year or two, is think back 4 or 5 years ago when I was mentioning those articles that we were reading, and it was about these single companies that were going to come in and change every aspect of every process in transportation, and it was this takeover of freight. And now what you really see happening is new technology emerging that's focused on these really specific problems within freight that are going, 10,000 feet deep, but in a really narrow moat, and really building out functionality that isn't just automating one aspect of a process, but is, fully automating or giving brokers a new level of protection from fraudulent activities like a company like Highway. And so I think one of the things that we see that's emerging is these very specific transportation problems, trends that we all deal with day to day, and new solutions that are emerging that are giving 3PLs like Echo the option to buy versus build. And that's something that we constantly are assessing on our side with the technology stack we have in place and the new product development we're doing in our internal, our carrier, our client-facing applications. It's a huge part of our strategy, but I think we recognize there are these very interesting use cases in the industry that are starting to pop up that are worth looking into if you're a player in our space.
I think some problems are better solving together, and appointments is one of them, fraud is one of them, tradability of capacity is one of them, smart contracts,
Yeah.
All of that will come over the next 10 years, I think.
Yeah. From the technology space, we call it our tech stack. So it's like you're going to have a tech stack for each of your different functions: fraud, scheduling, customer service. Mm-hmm. With people who've done a lot of evaluation of software, you've talked about all of the ones you're using and have looked at. Would love to get just best practices, pitfalls to avoid, anything you'd like to share with the audience as far as what you look at when you're evaluating new technology for Edge.
I never really look that hard at a new technology product that someone that I really trust hasn't recommended. It's a pretty tight group in freight. We all have worked with each other and know each other, at least through a secondary connection at worst. And the good stuff, the word really spreads. And so I think positive referrals and word of mouth is by far the most powerful way to market technology. The hard part about that is it requires having really strong technology that works and solves problems. So I think focusing on what's the problem for us that you're solving, what's the pain you're alleviating, what's the speed you're providing, what's the accuracy we're missing, are we wasting money we don't even know about that we can solve? All of those types of things are reasons why we would buy technology. I think having really good data and cases that fit what we're trying to do, and telling us a story about how we can get to a better place through the adoption of technology is really powerful. And then cost obviously is a big thing. Buy versus build. How long? Time value of money versus speed of getting something implemented. And then does the amount of money that the software or solution costs make sense to the problem that it solves? Is there a win there for us? And I think that a lot of technology firms kind of miss the boat on that, and they don't. They think certain problems are either more costly or less costly than they are. And yeah, like Jay said, we're now getting into this great era of freight tech where real problems are being solved, and it's not just every year there's like a new TMS that comes out or something like that. So yeah, it's
I was excited to hear you say referrals. We ask a question on our website, and it's, how did you hear about us?
Number one. That's the number one way. Yeah.
For most people, actually, it was, Google, advertisements.
Yeah.
But for logistics, almost 50% of people said, I heard about it from a friend.
That's exactly right.
This is such a tight-knit network where you trust each other, and that's the best way to hear about it. Same question for you, Jay. How do you evaluate new tech? What's your process for it?
I would just to add on to what Will said. We're in a little bit of a unique position at Echo. I think I recognize that just given the size of our technology team. It's 330, 340 people. Most of our technology that we leverage today is homegrown from our TMS to our client and carrier portals. And so I think in our world, there's some unique workflows or operating procedures that happen within our TMS where it's a very clear decision. This is something we're going to build. It's part of our platform. But then when it comes to new technology, we keep a very open mind. We approach it like Will said, and kind of look at the speed to market, cost to market. Is this a technology capability that's in our expertise from a talent standpoint, and kind of look at this myriad of characteristics and have a cross-functional business and technology team to help make a decision on what we do. And so we'll come across some new tech where it's a no-brainer at times. There's other situations where we might debate internally that we could build this ourselves, or it's a single integration. We got to connect. Why would we use an aggregator in that situation? So we have those open conversations, but we try to approach it as objectively as possible. But in our world, it's pretty obvious when there's a path to market that's best to partner than build. I think about freight tracking in general. Anyone who thinks it's a good use of capital to go out and connect to every ELD manufacturer and every LTL trucking company, it's crazy. There's aggregators out there. You can build one integration now and get all that data for a relatively cheap price. We would never build that ourselves, and that's probably one end of the extreme, but it's that type of thoughtful internal conversation we try to have.
Makes sense. And something that we hear a lot when we talk to logistics folks is that there's this maybe fear or resistance of change.
Sure.
People tolerate Outlook. It's not their favorite, but they don't want to learn something new. So I'm curious, how do you manage that when you're wanting to roll out something that you invested in to the team?
I would say from our perspective, I think there's a couple ways to be as successful as possible. I think just as a kind of umbrella statement, especially with new technology, especially with broker technology that a lot of people have used for a decade plus, depending on where they work. There's emotions tied to a certain workflow and way of doing things. So I think explaining the story on why something's happening, why a new process is being rolled out, why a new platform is being used, it's really important. And I would say beyond the story, it's the focus on change. We're a large company. If we were just rolling out new technology without a thoughtful approach, it would never be successfully adopted. And so we have a function within our business called change management that really is there to help support business stakeholders, our training organization, leaders throughout our company to know what is on the horizon, what processes are changing, create content and training materials to support that rollout. And so for an organization of our size, we've really found the combination of the story and the support is critical. Our managers, our leaders are multitasking, doing dozens of things throughout the day. If we relied on them purely to get new processes implemented, we'd be operating like we did 15 years ago. And so this team really acts, I'd say, as the linchpin to make sure that work gets done and that the change is adopted, and we can then really measure the new approach, see how it's working, tweak the rollout strategy if we need to.
Those are two great points. The big picture, I think, is important because sometimes in my day-to-day, I might not understand why I need to do this, but shavings make a pile, and you see that you're actually saving a ton of time by using it. And then we also recommend having that one point person or team of point people who understand and administer a software so that it's able to be done, or you can get the most value out of it, and you actually get that ROI versus having managers do that and their day job.
That function hasn't always existed at Echo, and I think you can see a kind of a clear before and after success rate with product adoption.
Awesome. So, what about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this is something that we've really struggled with, historically, trying to getting people to change their ways and bring in new ideas. And, I think that the things that we have to do really effectively in order to create an environment where we have a chance of success are, you have to have alignment. You have to have, everybody has to understand. I think a lot of the things we do at Edge we're solving small problems now so that we can solve bigger problems later, right? And a lot of what we're doing is foundational work, So we have to be able to have a culture of everybody understands that, it's not about right now, it's about what we're building for the future, and that the little things that we're doing here and there that do require some change and do require some time are for that greater good. We also have to be really sensitive to the fact that our people are super busy. The biggest problem with freight brokers is that we don't have enough time to do all the stuff we're supposed to do. And you run out of time quickly, right? If we had more time, we could book more loads, but that's one of the things that is very finite and very limited. So to ask our really hardworking freight people, who, we're also asking, they also have revenue pressure, they also have margin pressure, they also have growth pressure, to take time out of their revenue generating activities to focus on a new email product implementation, that could be met with pushback at times, especially from the kind of people that are really successful in this business. So we have to be really sensitive to that, and we have to show them what is the pain we're trying to alleviate, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and ultimately how does the work you're doing right now make you more money and make your customers give you more freight in the future, right? And I think with Front specifically, that is very, very easy to sell because, it is such a clear, pain relieving technology where, I think pretty much all of us operate in a real similar way where we have the, whatever account at Edge Logistics, right? And you have 10 people working off an email inbox, and I can't tell you how many times we've had 2 people quote the same load with different rates. We've had, 2 people update tracking information, tracking requests with different updates, and a lot of these different things just, tend to kill credibility, kill momentum, force not just our people but our customers to stop what they're doing and slow down and ask questions, and that's something that really, really bothers everybody. So with Front, the what pain is going to solve was very obvious, and I think most of the hurdles were just getting used to the clicks being different and that sort of thing. I think working with the users is really, really important. It's really easy for us to buy a solution from our purchasing team and think that, oh, this obviously solves our problem, right? But if you haven't had the users actually use it, a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, no, we can't do that. So it's why? It's because I can't click this thing this way, period. Can't do it. It would screw up everything. And it's something that you never would have thought, right? But you have to have the testing and the users in there to really get the honest feedback, because it's usually, issues that you never would have thought would be a problem.
Yeah, due diligence is super important when you're bringing on new technology. So this is the final question. Get y'all's questions ready. We're about to open the floor. It's actually a great segue. You just mentioned that you make technology investments. So curious, it's the end of the year, you're deciding what to keep, what to cut. How do you really measure the ROI of what's working and what was a good choice? And then perhaps you leave some solutions behind.
So my method is pretty simple. I just try to cut everything every year, and then I have my team fight for what they want, right? And Carter could probably speak to this, but Front is one where pretty much every year we've tried to either scale back or cut Front, because We're like, well, why are we using this? Why do we have so many users? Why does it cost so much? Blah, 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 blah. And every year, that's one where, the teams come and defend it, wholeheartedly, right? And if my internal team will come up and defend the technology that we're using and the vendor that we're using and say they want to allocate their budget to that solution because it provides them value, then that's, pretty much all I need to hear, right? One step past that, just data, data-driven decision making is, one of our core philosophies. So we need to have something that shows that our users are using it, and that it's, not just sitting there. We have had a lot of different freight tech stuff come and go over the years because people get excited about it in a demo or people use it for a little bit, and then ultimately they just stop using it and they revert back to the normal way of doing business. So being able to measure usage and that sort of thing in real time is really important. And then from a cost perspective, is there a cheaper, easier way of doing this? If there is, it's probably going to get cut.
Yep. And then closing us out, Jay, what about you? How do you measure the ROI of your...
I think the opposite.
Okay.
Well, I ask our CFO for as much as I can think of and then let him tell me no and go back and forth with him. But I would say we look at it very similar. Any new technology that we invest in before we even go into a proof of concept, we'll have some form of revenue, margin, efficiency, hypothesis that we build, an ROI model around. And then after we go live, we diligently measure it, and if things aren't going as expected, we seek to understand why. And as Will called out, it's typically a pretty objective decision on if you ever decide to part ways with a technology solution you've invested in. I think we usually try to put enough upfront due diligence in place that we're not surprised when something doesn't play out as expected. And that's just one thing I probably would call out is we've had a lot of success at Echo with any third-party technology that we license or use, setting up 60-day, 90-day proof of concept where we can test things out, often free of charge or risk, so that by the time we actually approach a full-scale rollout across the organization, we've got an idea of what actual tangible results we should see with from the pilot group we started with.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, of course.
And now opening the floor, we have a runner with a microphone. So we're going to have a couple of chances to talk. We can do this format Q&A with everyone, and then we're also going to head upstairs afterwards. There's beer, wine, and appetizers, so can chat up there. If y'all have questions for the room, go ahead and raise your hand, and Dina will hand a mic.
Can you just share name and who you're with?
Sure. Tori Enerson, Virginia Transport. We're a little logistics company here trying to be a big one. I got here late. I don't know if anyone made a joke about the between two ferns. Was that by design?
Yes, it wasn't by design. I thought about opening with it, but didn't want to lose it on the audience. So I'm glad you said it.
I picked it up. Question on build versus buy. So we struggle with that a lot. We have our own in-house TMS that there's all kinds of things we can add at any given moment. Have you guys, and I noticed you pointed out the obvious one, macro point or tracking, that's difficult to build in, but have you guys ever put a bunch of money into something in your own TMS and just found it wasn't working and then scrapped it and went back to a third party?
You can go ahead, Will.
Yes, we have. Yeah, mm-hmm. We've tried a lot of different things over the years, and sometimes reinventing the wheel isn't the best use of capital for us. For example, we use McLeod software for our core database infrastructure. And we have most of our users are not logging into the McLeod user interface, but the dual ledger accounting system in McLeod, we found to be a really strong back end. And back end infrastructure is very difficult to build, manage, and maintain. So that was one where as a smaller company that doesn't have the kind of technology budget that an Echo or a top 10 company would, we have to make those decisions all the time. Yeah, and we've definitely gone down the rabbit hole at times with development. I think the biggest one that has struggled has been, customer-facing technology, where, we think we have all these like great ideas for customers to come in and use our stuff and participate, and there just hasn't been as much of an appetite for that as there has been with the carrier technology. So, you learn, and then you restack your resources and you focus on, what's working.
Thank you.
Robert Bain, Strongest Man in Logistics. Question for both of you. So when you're looking across the industry and look at some of the big problems that technology is trying to touch, what do you think are the biggest issues that either it's not touching or not touching enough?
Well, I would say, and if this doesn't answer your question, I'm happy to give you another answer. But I will say, I think the concept of carrier vetting and fraud, double brokering prevention is an area where the industry got really stale for a bit over a decade. I think of some of the processes and technology that existed 12 months ago, and it was the same processes and technology that existed in 2010. And so that's an area that I think recently there's been a number of new entrants that are starting to focus on a real problem in transportation that, depending on the systems you have in place, you have little to no proactive opportunity to mitigate these issues. So I think that's one area that's really interesting. And another area that I am really excited about within our space is, and I hate to use buzzwords, but there's some transportation specific like NLP solutions that are emerging in the market that do a really good job of understanding data across varieties of formats and then taking that data to, take actions within a TMS. And I think we're starting to get to a point where these tools have enough industry tribal knowledge kind of built into their workflows that they're going to have a pretty profound impact. We're exploring some solutions right now in the order entry space to really remove that process completely from our people. And I'm pretty optimistic on the ability to do that for clients that send email, PDF, Excel, random formats to create orders.
Yeah, structuring unstructured data. It's amazing technology out there right now. I think the other, for me, the one that jumped to my mind immediately when you asked the question was EDI. EDI is a joke. The way that EDI is still widespreadly used by pretty much everybody across the entire domestic truckload supply chain. I think it's just really, it's so big and it happens so fast and everybody's use is so in deep that it's like, how do we stop? But at the same time, it's so limited, and the fact that even with like APIs being around for the last 25 whatever plus years. We haven't been able to disrupt EDI with API and have in any kind of widespread way, maybe in some really elite cases or some closed networks. But I think that is one where I'm both shocked and frustrated that it hasn't been addressed in any really meaningful way so far. No, sir. That's not. I'm not gonna touch that one.
Any other questions? All right, I'll do it. Going once, going twice. If not, we can head upstairs for some food, some drink, just some conversation. Thank y'all all for coming out today, and
Thank you very much.
Thanks again for our speakers.
Great job, Jay.